Hello there everyone and welcome to another edition of Lydia's Crafty Corner with me, Lydia, in my little crafty corner. So today I am going to be cheating a little bit by colouring using some backgrounds that I have made using some of the alcohol inks from Altenew. So the ones that I am going to be using are the new ones. So because I'm going to be using alcohol ink, I am using a stack of copy paper underneath me so I don't mark my surface. And I also have yupo paper. Now this is like a plastic kind of paper which is really smooth, which works really well with alcohol inks. Now the colours that I am going to be using are Hydrangea, Pinkalicious and also the Aqualicious. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop the colours into place on the yupo paper and I'm just going to move that around with a felt blending tool. To make the colours move around a little bit more, you could use some blending solution too. And you can also add the colours onto the felt and then dab that in. There's a lot of ways that you can play around with this. Just play around with it and have fun. You are going to get really cool effects using these tools. So that is that one done, and I'm just going to move that over to the side and work on the ones that I'm going to use for the leaves. So for the leaves I am using the grass field, the firefly and also that citrus burst. So as before, I'm just dropping that colour down onto the yupo paper using a bit of the blending solution too, and then if I need some darker areas I'm just going to add that in using the felt tool and just let that dry. Now these do dry really quickly. Now I'm going to be using the Airbrushed Flowers for my flowers and leaves. So as I am going to be heat setting onto here, I am going to be using some anti-static powder to stop the powder sticking where I don't want it. I can then ink my images. Now this is a really smooth and slick surface, so you want to make sure that it doesn't move around while you do stamp it. I have stamped that using some embossing ink from Altenew, and I am going to use the pure white embossing powder to pop on top of there. Now when you are heat setting onto yupo paper, you want to make sure that your tool is nice and hot, and you're going to kind of want to heat a little bit, then move it away, then heat, then move. Otherwise the paper that it is, the yupo paper, it will actually warp really badly. So just kind of add the heat, take it away, add the heat, take it away until all of that powder has nicely melted. I'm then going to go ahead and I'm just going to stamp another two of these flowers. So I'm going to stamp the same one again, and then I'm also going to stamp the other one that is in the set. As you can see, I did move slightly with this one, so the lines on this outline are slightly thicker than the lines that I do have on the first one that I did. So I'm then going to stamp the third flower. So this is the one with the little stem. And again, I'm using the embossing ink from Altenew and that pure white embossing powder to heat set that really beautiful bloom that we have there. I'm going to do exactly the same for the leaves. So I'm adding the anti-static powder down first, and then I'm also going to stamp some leaves, again using the embossing ink, and then heat setting that using the pure white embossing powder. Now I did stamp a lot of these leaves and I did end up using all of them, which was a shock to me, but you can kind of just stamp all over this and then leave some for a future project if you wanted to. So once I have all of my images nicely heat set, I'm then going to use the coordinating dies to cut all of the images out. So all you're going to need to do is pop them around the image, so the die around the image, add a little bit of tape so it doesn't shift, and then you can then run that through your die cutting machine. So once that has nicely die cut, you can see just how perfect these little images are. You do have a little bit of an outline with those beautiful colours, but I really think that really is quite pretty. So I have all of my images die cut and I wanted to add a little bit of texture. So I am going to take the Diamond Stars 3D embossing folder from Altenew, and I'm just going to take a 3 3/4 by 5 inch panel of white cardstock, and I'm just going to run that through my machine to get that really beautiful texture. It doesn't really take off away from the images that we have, but it's really just going to add something in the background. To add this onto my card base, I'm just going to use some foam tape. So I find that using foam tape is a great way to add embossed detail down because it does give you a little bit of give that way. So once I have the panel down, I'm then going to arrange my little flowers in place. Again, using some foam tape to pop them down and keep them nicely adhered in place. And then once the flowers are in position, I can then play around with the leaves. Now I don't really stick these down fully until I'm happy with the overall look of the floral cluster that we do have going on. So as you can see, I have some of them poking over the flowers. I do think this adds a little bit more interest to it. So once I've done that, I have then going to move on to my sentiment. So I have one of the sentiments from the Airbrushed Flowers stamp set, and I'm just going to stamp this little hello onto a piece of black cardstock using the embossing ink again, and then heat setting with that pure white embossing powder too. Now you don't really need to worry about this cardstock warping so much, it's heavyweight, but you do want to make sure that you don't heat it too much because it may burn. So I have the strip of the sentiment that I just have, and I also have a piece of pattern paper from the Essentials Black and White paper pack. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a little bit of a notch into the side just to give a little bit more interest to this card. Once I'm happy, I'm just going to add a little bit of glue tape, pop this sentiment down into place where I want it to be with that pattern cardstock, add a little bit more foam tape, this is very dimensional, and then pop that into place. Anything that's overhanging, just get rid of from the behind. So here is the card complete. I really do hope that you like the card and that you've enjoyed the video too, and that you've liked the techniques involved. If you do create a card inspired by this, it'd be great if you do share because we'd love to see. Thank you so much for watching everyone, and we'll see you again really, really soon. Bye bye.